time. On rotation number 2, the Swain ban for Schalke, followed by Nidalee. And that's a quicker Caitlyn ban. Last time it was the 3rd rotation. Still expect the Vlad, but maybe not from Schalke's side, since Roccat are actually the ones that ban it.
So in game 1, what we did see from Schalke was they actually decided to ban away Vlad and Elise. So that Elise is still left up on the table for Schalke to ban away if they so choose to. But there's also the Kindred still up, which I feel like Roccat, perhaps they want to make sure that Gilius doesn't get his hands on that, but I do think a Gragas ban could be very beneficial for Roccat right now as well. Yeah,
well, the Rise ban comes out, and so far we kind of expect that to be happening fairly regularly. So that last ban, I mean, Roccat, they could, in theory, ban the Kindred themselves, because Airwaks was simultaneously the worst and best player, depending on what part of the game you were looking at. Azir, he's the one that's banned away, though, so this is the first pick over to Schalke. Now, did they instantly go for that Gragas? Is the jungle that important?
Well, there are a lot of things available right now. We have the Kindred, the Gragas. They're not going to pick their mid this early on into the rotation with Azir being taken off the table. Victor is a mid laner that springs to mind that could rise in popularity. Fox has had some great Victor games in the past. So we'll have to see what they decide to prioritize. Just trying to think it will be the Gragas.
So they value that so much. I'm curious to see if they build the same kind of composition. Like Deficia is talking about how much he liked that, how well they were able to execute it. Roccat may not have an answer.
Well, they're going to have to find one. In terms of the early game pressure, Airwaks definitely outmatched Gilius, using that Kindred to its full effects. Really playing the map very well during the early parts and basically setting his team up for success a little bit better than Gilius. But when it came to these mid and late game fights, Schalke were the ones coming out ahead, just straight up executing their composition overall better than Roccat were able to.
Braum being considered yet again for Roccat. He just had so much they could get done and deny, but it didn't end up being enough at the end of the game. The Victor comes in as a pick for Betsy now, and they lock the Jhin on their side.
So the big question for me is, what mid do we now see coming out from Fox? He could go for a Lissandra. If he wants to be hyper-aggressive, he could go for something like a LeBlanc. Maybe even a Zed if he wants. Zed's a little bit more risky, but Assassins typically tend to be one of those risky picks. But also Roccat actually picking themselves up the Jhin, so Schalke already being denied the ability to go back to a composition that they're running in game 1. And to be fair to Steeelback, he has had some pretty impressive games on that Jhin before. 2 games, 1 win, 1 loss. But still a very impressive KDA overall on that Jhin, even in his loss. 8.7 on the Jhin. So definitely knows how to make that one work.
Well, Steeelback has been using these longer range AD carries. The Jhin has been kind of what he's fallen back to when the Caitlyn wasn't available. Teams, even though that's a top tier AD carry, it's kind of still a respect band against him. Schalke, they're going to lock the Ezreal Bard, so they've got their bot lane all locked in. I'm curious to see how they can make use of the Bard, because that is another champion that can really make or break a game in team fights.
Certainly can. I'm surprised they managed to make it through the draft in the previous game, but it does look like sprattel going to be returning to that Bard once more. And Bard, fantastic for setting up engages, very oppressive during the laning phase, pretty much ticks all the boxes that you would possibly want in a support, and has been rising in popularity throughout the world. So definitely a strong support pick for Schalke to be picking up.
Roccat on their side, they do lock that Braum. They get Airwaks back onto a very comfortable Kindred choice. So there's a lot of power, a lot of range as well. Despite the Kindred, they have the Jhin and Victor. I mean, this is lasers and shots left and right, and they can deny even more poke with the Braum. So there's good protection there as well.
It's quite interesting that when you kind of look at the matchups from the compositions that we have so far, the Victor and the Jhin towards the late game have to be very mindful of this Bard, because he's going to get to a point where you can't dodge all of the Bard ultimates, and it's going to be really difficult for Roccat if they don't keep forcing these plays like we saw before, because if it gets to this late game point, they're eventually going to get caught out. We might see a similar thing to what we saw from H2K versus G2 yesterday, where one Bard ult pretty much decided the game.
Yeah, and we saw what happened when Betsy was disrespecting with his summoner choice on Victor already. This time you could see he switched it over right as soon as they locked again. The Varus is the mid choice now for Fox, and they round out their composition with the Trundle. That is quickly answered by an Echo for Parang.
So, just looking at the 2 compositions, Schalke pretty much going for exactly what they had in game 1. Yeah. The ever so slight difference being Steve up in the top lane on this Trundle, going more towards that 1-4 as opposed to the heavy sort of engage that you get from the Gnar. but still really good at disengage. The pillar, very obnoxious to get around.
Right.
If you have to run away from your opponents, really good at that. It's also actually really good follow-up with the Bard ultimate, because the moment they come out of it, they're going to have to run around, and it makes it very easy to set that one up. So again, a lot of pick potential available from Schalke, and Roccat, they've drafted a little bit more poke, a little bit. They still have strong team fighting with the Victor and with the Jhin, and Braum is still going to be that very solid frontline disengage. I'm a little bit curious about this Echo pick. We have seen it come out from Roccat in the past. Not as strong ever since the nerfs on 6.11, but we'll have to see how well Roccat can make it work for themselves.
Yeah, that's always the big question when you talk about these skill-based matchups and the hybrid compositions. You know, they can do a little bit of both things in this game, see if they end up going once more very aggressive Schalke. They had answers. They have one win on the board, and maybe they can pick up another one. But we want to hear what you guys think at home, of course. Keep on tweeting. Keep on hitting us up. At LOL Esports is the place. Hashtag S04 win if you think the 2-0 is going to be what Schalke are going to put away against their opponents, or if Roccat are going to tie the series up at 1-1. Keep that rivalry strong. Hashtag ROC win. It's going to get bloody. That is one thing for certain.
And once again, the early game will likely be our priority. We want to see how both these teams look to try and set up plays during the early game. Once again, we've already discussed how Schalke do have a composition that will take a little bit of scaling. Won't quite have the same sort of double penetration, but you are likely to see the Trinity Force being picked up by the Ezreal. So since the changes to that, he is going to be quite a powerful pick, and I'm excited to see how Schalke can make this composition work, but it's likely going to be very similar to what we saw in Game 1.
Roccat, 4 members strong. We did see the scouting for the swap last time around. Fairly standard stuff. They send 4 members in, spotted on the ward, and Schalke scatter away. So Roccat clearly looking to see if they can spot the lane swap themselves and not maybe necessarily deal, or at least just get themselves a little further ahead early on. It's Roccat, excuse me, I'm talking about.
So Schalke getting themselves some deep wards. Once again, both teams setting up for the possibility of a lane swap. If we are going to see a lane swap, it's actually quite a tough one to call as to who we're going to see try and avoid the 2v2 or the 1v1. Perhaps both teams basically just want to go for non-standard lanes and just basically look for that very passive early game.
Yeah, still might fall back into those patterns. A lot of pings flying right now. Roccat attempting not to show their hand, but they are spotted as they run through the jungle. Schalke know this is happening. Are they content to take the 2v2? Or it looks like they're actually just moving back down towards the bottom side. We could be in for yet another fast push.
Yeah, it does seem that way. So we're going to be seeing the standard, non-standard lanes.
Oh, we saw some weird stuff despite the standard, right? There was all the way the push to the inhibitor turrets to start things off last time around.
Was. But that was, to be fair to Roccat, just a really good adaptation and just playing the map very well.
Oh, yeah. Taking a look at the Keystone Masteries, we got a lot of Deathfire on the board. And of course, that's fairly standard when you talk about the Jhin, when you talk about the varus. You want to add a little bit of burn to your long-range shots. So, looks like we will settle in for those fast pushes. Schalke on the bottom side, Roccat on the top. As soon as they clear their jungle, they actually make a move quicker. Schalke sending 3 members very fast as Gilius was left to do the red buff alone.
Yep. And you're just going to basically keep your duo partner of the jungle and top in the top half of the map, which is your strong side, because you have your bottom lane there. So nothing too surprising being seen from the early game. Schalke will get a bit of a tempo advantage because they have hit this turret first, but overall it's not going to result in any massive net gain. The big thing to note is how RALEZ isn't going to have as much clear as the 3-man squad of Roccat, because typically when you're going for this lane swap, you want to be using your abilities to clear the waves, whereas as you can see from RALEZ, he's being forced to use his basic attacks, which means that you're going to be taking that turret a little bit slower, which will result in an ever so slight tempo.
Slight shift. First dragon on the board. Speaking of a slowdown game, it's going to be Cloud. Have a very fun time seeing how long he lasts. Always break out your stopwatches for that one. So Steve will finally be able to grab this tower after bouncing around the wave. Roccat just about behind. Even on the heels, they actually have Airwaks going a little bit further down into the jungle at the same time, but obviously staying on the strong side, both teams attempting to do that. We saw him stepping a little bit out of bounds in game number 1. Can only hope he's learned his lesson.
So it does actually look like, because Schalke got to that turret first in the bottom lane, that's actually going to give them a big swing in tempo. And I wonder right now whether or not Roccat might look to try and revert to standard lanes, simply because of how much sooner RALEZ and sprattel are going to get back to lane. Looks like right now that they are going to continue on with the lane swap, but just think of the huge amount of experience and farm that Steve is going to get off the back of this. This could result in a big problem for Parang moving forward.
Yeah, MrRalleZ wasn't even able to, or was able to get there and grab a little bit more for himself as well, since they decided to send that 2v2 up to the top side and keep it that way, forcing Parang to back off. Still not wanting to take this 2v2. Braum and Jhin, Steeelback, RALEZ, going to be pushing down the bottom side into Steve, and still settle fairly into the standard. sprattel actually doesn't stop the Parang back.
Guess he didn't see it. A little bit unfortunate for sprattel. Not going to be able to interrupt Parang's back. But the continuation of the lane swap, I don't want to hop on about it.
Yeah. That's a quieter game already. I mean, at this point, last game, we were already talking about inhibitors and crazy things. And
a little bit optimistic.
Both the team. I mean, you know, we were talking about it. I didn't say it happened yet.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Seeing as we do have the lane swap, weather was pretty bad in Germany this morning.
Is that what we've resorted to? All right, guys.
Well,
break out your lawn chairs. We've got something to watch for a couple of hours. Now, Airwaks is going to go down and help accelerate this one. Obviously, Gilius has actually opted to hang a little bit closer to the mid. He could be coming up towards topside, but it's much slower. So Roccat have actually swung this a bit more in their favor. I was curious about this mid matchup, though, because last time they tried to influence it pretty heavily with the Varus, Azir, and Varus seemed to have the upper hand, especially with the help from Karma kind of coming in early on. But now it's been a very quiet affair in this mid lane, and I'm wondering which jungler is going to make the first move to try and tilt that scale.
Yeah, the big problem for Gilius in particular is it's a little bit harder to gank the Victor. From my personal perspective, obviously, different people would argue different things. But because of his gravity field, it's a big area of zone, or as I say that.
Yep, he's going to do it, but that is instantly cleansed and flashed away. He still might go down, though. Piercing arrow, first blood, and that is picked up by the mid laner of Schalke. So they get themselves a small advantage, pad the gold pockets.
So just as I wanted to talk about how the matchup typically goes a little bit better for the for the Victor, Betsy decides to end up overextending and getting caught out. So you can see Betsy trying to be aggressive by trading back and forth. Doesn't have any vision in the bottom half of the river and ends up getting collapsed upon. It's just a big misplay coming out from Betsy. This is something that we saw from him against OG yesterday, where he was just playing a little bit too aggressively, and Gilius saw the opportunity, took it, first blood to Schalke.
Honestly, really quick reaction time from Gilius. Once he saw that opening to go for it, flash body slam, instantaneous. And even though Betsy burned both the summoners, yeah, there really wasn't much he could do at that point. Fox making himself look juicy, so the team working in tandem to get those baits out. And 6 minutes, that's our first blood. So, Schalke moving a couple members here into this bottom side, trying to establish a strong front. Might actually go for a long flank. sprattel, if he can knock the stun, it could be even worse for Betsy. He's got no summoners here, and he's stepped far forward.
Yeah, but he can run upwards this time to the safety of his jungler, but is it going to be enough?
Chains are on, but in comes Airwaks, tagging in the Chaos Storm, keeping Fox real low, but he did get the summoner heal out, and now Gilius and sprattel realize they don't want to take this protracted 3v3. This is going to give some time, however, for Airwaks and RALEZ, or excuse me, Steeelback and RALEZ to try and push on this bottom side uncontested. Well, RALEZ is trying to do the same in the bottom.
But have a look at the positioning right now of Roccat and Schalke. You have Steve in the bottom half of the map, pushing in with a wave that's just going to knock into the tower, and Parang is going to soak all this up. Whereas Roccat, they're going to shove this wave and deny all this farm from Steve. So right now, Roccat, they're going to be able to soak up a lot more farm than Schalke is. And as long as Parang doesn't give away his life here, this should go in favor of Roccat.
Yeah, Parang still able to phase dive, and he dodges from Gilius. Had to flash away from that one, but he does stay alive. Towers are going to be traded inners. This is starting to look a bit more like the last game we saw, but Roccat are the ones that are pushing a little bit faster, a little bit better, and denying that farm from Steve, who's still actually trying to tango with Parang.
Well, he knows that Airwaks is in the top half of the map. He knows that the likelihood of him getting ganked is very unlikely. And with Schalke right now in a good position to take away this dragon, they're going to be able to pick that one up for free. So not as bad as it was before, but still, you have a lot of farm being picked up by Parang, whereas Steve is going to be denied it. And there were so many good opportunities right there for Schalke to really put Steve really far ahead because of how much of a tempo advantage they had in the lane swap. They didn't take advantage of it, and that's resulted in now Parang closing the gap that was created between both the top lanes.
Schalke, they opt for the moment to get themselves the Constellation Dragon, and that one's cleared off the board. Next Dragon's Ocean, a little more useful. We've seen quite a lot of both already in this series. Yeah, so not too bad there. But you can see how quick and how little hesitation the key ultimates are really thrown out because everyone's starting to get them. Everyone's pinging up to 6. Roccat a little bit ahead on the curve. A lot of action attempted in the mid, of course, but really it's all been about manipulating these side waves and getting the fast clears off, giving the openings. Roccat, they just seem to be doing a little bit better, although the gold is pretty much dead even.
So the thing that I actually like from Roccat is they're sticking to my mantra, which is the strong will push and the weak will receive. And often in lane swaps, your top laner gets denied a lot of farm, and to pick up those resources, what you typically want is your duo pair will always shove the wave up. That's just kind of how it happens, because it's safe for them. They can afford to push past the river, and because the jungler typically hands around your strong side of the map, it's usually the safer thing to do. So as that wave is getting pushed in, you want your top laner to then be there to receive it. And so far, Roccat have done a great job of making sure that Parang is always on the receiving end of these big chunks of farm, whereas Steve is the one overextending. And fortunately, he knows that Airwaks is in the bottom half of the map, so he can afford to be a little bit more aggressive. But Gilius, he might be a little bit too aggressive.
Now, speaking of, takes 1, 2, 3 curtain calls, finally dodging out the 4th. But there's a teleport coming in right now, and in comes Steve, being aggressive himself, throws down the traffic cone. Airwaks chunked out even further through the Lamb's Respite. He gets the heal off, but they take down Raze. They look for more. No, they turn their attention as Betsy has come right back. Very bloody affair, but it only results in 1 death.
So many good plays there from Schalke.
Oh, I spoke too soon. That's RALLZ. Nice cleanup.
RALLZ gets himself another kill. Airwaks was not expecting that whatsoever. Didn't have his flash available, and Schalke, they get themselves 2 kills overall, which was just really smart from them overall. Simply, if you just looked at the map once again, Parang, he had to deal with a big minion wave that was pushing in the top. So yes, he could have teleported down, but he would have been down in levels. He would have lost a huge amount of farm. And it would have just been even worse for Roccat if he decided to TP down. So Steve knew that Schalke would have the numbers advantage. Roccat were not in a position where they could escape from that gank. And Schalke end up coming out ahead overall. So once more, Roccat struggling in the early game.
Yeah, and Schalke, you know, utilizing the tools they have in their kit to be able to make those plays. Steve, you know, they have the disadvantage when it comes to teleports at the moment, but look at the map. There's nothing to take. There's no dragon on the board for a few more minutes. No one's really trying to contest the Rift Herald, and because all the towers have been cleared so quickly, this doesn't really punish them in any way, so kudos to Schalke, getting themselves at 1,000 plus gold advantage right now, just trying to shove in Roccat, and, you know, Rocket's still having a rough time in the early game, despite the last game being an outlier.
Certainly is the case. So moving forward, for Schalke, this is great. Their composition hits a big spike in the mid to late game. Varus, he wants to complete that Black Cleaver Ghostblade. Actually, in fact, we saw before, more towards that heavy penetration with the Mortal Reminder was sprattel.
Oh, he's caught. 1 magical journey later, though, and he's going to be wiping some sweat off his brow.
Oh, very close to sprattel. But fortunately, by playing Bard, it does mean that you are a bit of a slippery sausage, so he's quickly able to get out of that one.
Slippery sausage?
Yeah, it's
I've not heard that one before.
It's British.
Is that what they say in Wales?
Like, that's the badger. That's a slippery sausage. Like, you're looking sheepy. Yeah, we got a bunch of phrases.
All right. This is like another level of English, to be honest. And Airwaks, he's on another level of pain.
Oh, wow.
That was a big collapse right there. RALLZ getting himself another kill. That'll enable his power spike to push even farther forward. 12 minutes in, Schalke, they're not letting up. As soon as Airwaks steps out of line, he's down. Chains, insta-cleanse. And that'll stop the aggression there from Fox, but he does trade a summoner, or he trades an ultimate for the summoner.
So Airwaks wants to get a bit of deep vision down. Because he's on the strong side of his map, he feels that he's a little bit safer. Feels like Raze can come up and provide that support if he needs it.
Nope.
But he was not expecting that immediate collapse coming out from Schalke. Gilius coming in from the flank. The binding from sprattel just made for a very easy kill. And because of all this attention that Airwaks is spending in the strong side of the map, it's resulting in Parang constantly being forced underneath his turret. Steve is so free to overextend and be as aggressive as he wants. And if he picks up this Rift Herald, he can just be even more aggressive.
Yeah, it's going to be rough for Parang for a little while now. Once this one gets started, Airwaks is actually right behind it. I mean, there's no reason for them to try and contest this, but at the same time, it's going to be so rough for Parang. Rift Herald's already down to about 3,000. The rest of Roccat are moving towards this bottom side. It's going to be Dragon in 50 seconds. And if they play their cards right, they might just be able to get here to contest it on the side of Schalke.
They could very well do. The teleport is just about to come back up for Steve. Roccat trying to get some deep vision down and steal away this red buff if they can. They know that the Gragas is not in the bottom half of the map because the Rift Herald has just been taken. So Roccat want to be able to pick up whatever advantages that they can. And right now, things are in a bit of a lull. The dragon, as you rightly said, spawning in just a couple seconds. Because it's the ocean, unlikely that both teams are going to try and force this play. So we'll have to keep an eye out. It's likely going to go to whichever team can pretty much pick it up the easier. You don't want to invest too many resources into this Ocean Drake simply because it doesn't offer a huge amount of value that's worth dying.
But the vision is definitely something Roccat have valued around that side. Look at how many wards they've invested. A couple of pinks. They still have several in their inventories. Versus what Schalke's really brought, not a whole lot. But Schalke, they haven't really needed it as much in the moment because they just keep getting these picks. It doesn't matter if you have vision if you step outside of the range.
Certainly true. Schalke do have some fantastic picks, something that they made work very nicely in Game 1, and they're trying to repeat in Game 2. Why break something? Why fix something if it ain't broke?
Yeah, I know that phrase, by the way. That's one we use on across the pond for sure. So Rift Herald, excuse me, that was already taken. The Skeleton Crab picked up by Airwaks, and he doesn't die for it this time, even though a lot of the team had backed away. RALLZ and sprattel still contesting. It's the 2v2. The teams have kind of gone back to laning. You know, we talk about how it's kind of a lull pattern, but sure, they're just waiting for something that they want to contest on the map. And, you know, both teams do have a decent bit of scaling on their side, so they both will be pretty happy by not having too much aggression, especially Roccat, who are still licking their wounds.
Certainly true, and it looks like we're not going to be seeing much more aggression as we hit the 15-minute mark. Both teams just waiting to complete their first major items. It looks like Betsy going very early on for a Zhonya's Hourglass, which makes sense when you have double AD, triple AD coming out from Schalke. But it comes back to what you, what Deficia was saying on the desk, where when you have so much penetration, it doesn't matter if you're full AD. You're kind of compensating for the fact that you do lack that AP damage by just shredding through all the armor that Roccat is trying to build.
Yeah, and Steve is definitely in a good position to punish. He's just stepping forward. I can take this red buff, and I can take a bite out of Prang right while I'm at it. The rest of Roccat, however, have started this Ocean Drake real quick. They may get punished for it, though. It's taken away, smited, but the rest of Schalke are here. They find a Tempered Fate onto Airwaks. In comes Gilius, does throw the barrel, but it only knocks everyone back, and he's stunned up in the gravity field, and Steeelback cleans him up, along with the rest of the team. Curtain call now. Not enough to finish anyone else off, but a dragon and a Gragas for dessert. They'll be happy with that.
Ooh, the snipe.
Oh, raise. That's the wrong way to put your shield, but he lives anyways.
Yes, he does. And Schalke, they tried to force the fight with the Bard ultimate. This was something that you and I were discussing in Champion Select, which is when you have two low mobility carriers, it is quite easy to catch those targets out, especially if they don't have flashes. But Roccat, they didn't need to use it. So Roccat, they kick off this dragon. They don't necessarily have full vision control, but they have enough to cleanly take that one away. sprattel only lands the ultimate onto Airwaks, but because of the ultimate from RALLZ, he actually prevents the disengage. And that pillar from Steve, I feel actually did more harm than good, because it made it so hard for the rest of Schalke to actually follow up on the initiation from Gilius, who didn't really get an ideal barrel, and because he was somewhat left up a creek without a paddle, it was easy for Roccat to clean up that fight.
Yeah, and Schalke could have certainly lost a lot more. They did manage to get a bit of parting shots on the disengage, but just not enough to clean up any kills. So Roccat, they get a little bit back for themselves. They have to be feeling pretty happy with that play. Schalke, though, not letting up an inch, continuing to push down on this bottom side, but they might be stepping into a hornet's nest if they don't watch their backs.
Oh, Schalke playing very aggressively on the bottom half of the map. It is a 3v3. Neither teleport available on the top laners, but Steve, he's definitely building a bit of an advantage in this top half of the map right now. Completed the Ravenous Hydra already, working towards what I expect to be a Spirit's Visage to get a bit of magic resistance up against the lot of AP that you have coming out from Roccat. And I just really want to keep my eyes on how Steeelback is doing on this Jhin, because he did have a fantastic game 1. And so far, 1-0-0, 165 CS, completed the Ghost Blade, playing pretty well.
Yeah, he's definitely ahead of the Ezreal right now, and he even manages to dodge his way out of the Tempered Fate. Walking, stepping, nice and easy. Walk softly, but he has a big gun to carry, that's for sure. 18 minutes on the clock. Ghost Blade popped for Fox, but he runs back into Airwaks. It's fine. He's got friends. There's the Lamb's Respite. Airwaks is going to live through it. Ray steps right forward, and Betsy hops and lasers, but he can't find the kill. Double summoners used by Fox to get out of that situation.
Ambitious flash from Betsy, but he does get the return flash out from Fox, which now results in Fox having no summoners available, something that he's going to have to be very mindful of when going up against Parang, who's going to be looking to dive onto that backline whenever he sees an opportunity. But Airwaks, really aggressive plays coming out from him. 2 versus 1. He knew that the rest of Roccat were coming in for the collapse, but he bought enough time for his team to join, provide the support that they needed, and they're actually able to force Schalke away from that tier 1 turret in the mid.
That's what's just been so critical about this team. Airwaks trusting his team to be arriving right on time, and when they have started these fights, it's looked seamless. They've not been able to execute 100% of the way, but to start them, they've definitely got that down to a pattern. And Roccat, you know, they're looking like a stronger team than last week, despite the loss we saw.
Maybe Airwaks trusts his team a little bit too much, and often when he goes to these hyper-aggressive team fight starts, he's just like, team, I know you'll follow up with me, and the rest of his team is like, wait, what, you're going in?
But they do follow him.
Eventually, after he sometimes gets caught out, which is why right now, sitting at 0-2, not the best way to start off a game, but still, Roccat, they're not out of it yet. They are only at an ever so slight deficit. They do still have a pretty good team fight comp, and if they get more engages like they had around the Dragon, where they get a fight in which suits them, one in which they can actually be the facilitators and they set it up for themselves, then there's no reason why they can't come out ahead in this team fight.
Yeah, but still have to be very wary of the power that Schalke are bringing as the fight gets on. Sprattel right into RALEZ. He's going to get stunned up. Tempered Fate lands, and it lands on Airwaks. And Gilius, the curtain call. Steeelback grabs a kill for himself. Airwaks having to flash, and a true shot barrage. 2 quick cleanups, and there's no way Parang is going to get there in time. A double kill to the Triforce Ezreal.
So really good pickup coming out from Roccat. They instantly go for the collapse down onto Sprattel, but the problem is, because of how slippery this bard is, they have to invest so many resources just to actually finally get that kill, and because it took them so long, RALEZ is finally able to join the fight, and he cleans it up in favor of Schalke, who are now going to go for this tier 1 mid.
Yeah, Parang, Steeelback trying to pincer, but Steeelback still took some time to get right in range. Steven Fox really getting punished here, as this tower will stand another day.
I thought you called them Steven Fox, and I'm like, oh, is he famous? Steven Fox?
Yeah, actually, to me, it sounded like it was a really, really good sitcom. So if this whole Schalke thing doesn't work out. Anyways, let's see the fight again. RALEZ steps right around and preempts the magical journey. I love this move.
Yeah, really smart from RALEZ, but unfortunately just the positioning of Gilius to prevent the ultimate coming out from the Jhin means that it just takes them a little bit too long to finally get that kill. Oh. They can't go for the disengage, and then the exhaust, little bit too late from RALEZ, and it just means that RALEZ gets all the damage down that he needs. He's now 4-0-1, sitting on a Trinity Force, and already RALEZ having a great way to kick off this game.
Yeah, Steeelback's definitely doing pretty hot himself, but you know, if you're going to be looking at 4-0 Ezreal, you've got to be happy with how this game is shaping up. We're 21 minutes in, Baron's been live, and obviously every prediction for when are they going to take what objective, it seems to have been off the table from last game, but things here a bit more standard as the next dragon spawns. It is in fact Ocean once again. Gilius is lying in wait to see if Roccat want to try and set up some vision, but he moves a little bit too quickly out of there, and Scuttlecrab will be taken.
So, setting up for this next Ocean Drake, Schalke shoving in the bottom wave, forcing Roccat to have to deal with it so that Schalke can make this dragon acquisition just a little bit easier. Teleport unavailable for Parang, but is up for Steve. So I think Roccat, they just need to concede this dragon, because if they try to fight it, they're not going to have the support of their top laner. And,
don't concede the blue buff, though.
Yeah. Fortunately, Roccat, they're able to give themselves the blue buff, but they don't get the blue buff onto Betsy.
Airwaks is still playing with fire, though, man. He steps real far forward on that one. Manages to get it down, but they're going to have to give up the dragon, as you say. So, we've got 1 Air Drake, 1 Ocean Drake, but now the third one goes over to Schalke. Still in the top side. The top laners locked in an epic struggle for eternity. Steve having the teleport advantage very momentarily, but as you said, there was really no way Roccat were going to be able to contest that buff.
And have a look at Gilius' scoreline. 1-1-5. 100% kill contribution right now. And we talked about how maybe Roccat should look to take him off this pick, but they decided not to. They haven't been able to answer it, and so far Gilius is demonstrating once again why Gragas is one of his go-to champions.
He can just be so aggressive on it and setting up fights. We talk often about Gragas being a enabling, disengaging champion, but there's something to be said for the flash body slam, flash ult. He's just had so many fast moves, and you know, I mean, just looking at Gragas, you wouldn't think him able to move that fast, but Gilius has got those quick fingers.
Certainly does. Decided to actually pick up the Ionian boot, so he wants to get a bit of extra cooldown reduction in his kit. to enable himself to go for those picks a little bit more often. Has that extra bit of mobility, being able to use that body slam a little bit more regularly. And has also decided to pick up a very early rando in, so wants to be dealing with the damage coming out from Steeelback, who has decided to go for an Infinity Edge second, so wants to be dealing a lot of damage.
Yeah, well, I think everybody really wants to deal damage, but you're right, the build certainly allows it. RALEZ, of course, on the Trinity Force Ezreal, coming much more back into vogue, and right now, Schalke, they're still on the offensive, moving into this top side as a unit, but not everyone. And Steve is actually isolated here as Parang and Airwaks look to chase him down. He takes a bite, turns away from the parallel convergence, seeing if he can get his way out. Has to burn Flash at the end of the day, but he will be able to walk out, or hobble, as it were.
The thing is, what is Schalke now going to do to try and punish the fact that Roccat have invested 2 members down into the bottom half of the map? There's not really a good objective for them to take. And right now, teleport coming in from Roccat.
Yeah, Steve going a little bit low. Flash in, Parang wants to phase dive on. Drain changes attention over to Fox. Chains of corruption though, and Airwaks was in the front tanking too many shots. No one goes down, however, and Roccat, sensing the danger, back away before they take any more unnecessary damage.
So just a couple of summoner spells used. Parang throughout the teleport, wanted to try and set up the flank for his team, but unfortunately there was just too much disengage on the lineup of Schalke, and right now Gilius.
Oh, it's Airwaks. He gets knocked in and sprattel claims the kill. That's going to put Schalke right on the front line to try and get even more out of this. Parang going low, Chaos Storm, not enough. RALEZ sinks the goal. Steve takes a bite out of Parang. That is 3 kills. They might be low health bars, and it's going to be answered back. Steeelback gets Gilius for revenge.
So, Schalke, they find the pick down onto Airwaks once again. Oh, flash from Steeelback.
RALEZ, he just narrowly scrapes out of that fight. It is so scrappy. Raze going low, going down. Fox sinks him with the arrow.
So Schalke, they've now picked themselves up 4 kills. They're likely going to get themselves a tier 1 in the mid lane, and they might even push for more. They're going to go for that tier 2 and build themselves a pretty big gold lead.
Yeah, Schalke, they are on the offensive, on the front, continuing to find the openings, probing, and finally getting in. Not perfect, not without losing members, but it is looking much, much nicer for them. 6,000 gold ahead of the pack.
Oh, man, and let's just see how this all kicks off. Gilius, no vision on him from the flank. Airwaks not given an opportunity to use that Lamb's Respite because of how quickly he was deleted. And then with the Steve engage from the flank, Schalke just go for the cleanup. RALEZ gets the first hit ultimate down onto Betsy, which is enough damage to get the cleanup kill. Steeelback, though, trying to go for the snipe, gets the kill down onto Gilius, and then Raze gets hit by that Cosmic Binding and goes down as well. So it's simply a matter of Schalke going for the immediate disengage after what was a really good setup initially from Roccat. A lot of summoner spells were used. Schalke go for the escape. Roccat tried to commit for this tier 1 turret. They don't expect the re-engage coming out from Schalke, and this just reminds me of what we saw in game 1, where Roccat, they just commit a little bit too hard and they don't respect the possibilities of Schalke getting a turnaround.
Time and time again, they're starting to prove it. So a big lead now for Schalke. Roccat, they're going to have some climbing back to do, but it's not like they've not been in a familiar position in terms of where the gold's at. Very different reasons, of course, this game, but this is something that they've found themselves in off in this split, and I want to see if they can make that comeback happen.
If anything, they're more comfortable in this situation because
kind of weird to say,
in more of their games, this is the situation they have been put in. The late game team fighting is what they're all about, and all they need is Schalke to overstep their boundaries just a tad, and then Roccat can look to punish it. Yeah, exactly that.
Not enough damage on sprattel, though.
So the RALEZ has now been completed for Betsy. He wants to make sure that he can keep his opponents within the ultimate. Decided not to finish up the Zhonya's. Values more just picking up that Seeker's Arm Guard, so he has a bit of extra armor available. But 3 items strong now for Fox and RALEZ, and that is a very powerful poke duo that you have coming out from Schalke.
Yes, indeed. They've been using it quite effectively. Roccat still got a lot of fight in them. Have to see how they're able to stem this onslaught at the moment. But the war of attrition is starting to take a toll. A lot of wards of Schalke's inside of the Roccat jungle. The 6,000 gold advantage still staying there. Airwaks is caught. Tempered Fate. Can they collapse on him in time? Parallel Convergence, and that will cover Airwaks' escape. Parang tanks a True Shot Barrage, and that will be the end of that.
So they invest a lot of resources down into trying to get Airwaks. But unfortunately for Schalke, the presence of Parang and Raze is enough to just sway the continued aggression coming out from Schalke. So they don't find the pick. but they are going to force Airwaks back, and that might be an opportunity for Schalke to posture around this Baron. They're trying to extend their vision line deep into Rockat's half of the jungle, but they've decided that it's a little bit too risky, and they're just going to move away.
No need to take those unnecessary risks for now. Roccat, they've been the ones who've been a little over-aggressive, but Schalke a bit more calculating. Dragon is live for Schalke with the map control that they have. This seems not contestable. Roccat have actually moved towards the top side, though, to see if they can get a bit more Baron vision back for themselves. And they might be okay with that trade for now, but still, the extra regeneration will mean Schalke can fight more and more often.
Certainly will. And now have a look at Roccat. They're the ones posturing around the Baron. Something that they need to be very mindful of. They were able to sneak it at 21 minutes in game 1.
Very different scenario, though.
Very different, yes. As RALEZ. Oh! He shoots, he scores.
Schalke! Wow.
Wow. RALEZ going man mode. Gets a quick kill down onto Airwaks. Talking about this man getting caught out of position. I don't think he was expecting to get caught out by a RALEZ right there.
I want to see that one again. RALEZ is styling at this point. Whew.
Man. Talk about like just sweeping through everything and just getting that pot shot off to get the kill. I mean, he doesn't even have vision. He just spots Raze, goes for a bit of poke, and then he notices Airwaks out of position. Oh my words. E into basic attack, into Q, quick kill. Airwaks unavailable. Schalke feel the need to try and force this Baron.
Yep, didn't even look out of position, but now 5,000 health is down. Curtain Call comes out, it's gonna ping onto RALEZ, but he steps aside. Over there, still on the Baron. Steve trying to zone it out, but this could be not a smite fight since Airwaks way too low. Steeelback will pick up a kill. That's the smite gone from Gilius. Baron, they can't take it now. It's way too unsafe. Parang, though, gets sniped down by RALEZ, and Schalke trying to retreat, but Steeelback with the double kill. Locked up, do they have the damage? Gravity field, sprattel, a triple for Steeelback. Betsy's down. Everybody is dying in this fight. It's chaos. Fox will fall to Airwaks, and Roccat get the better of that.
So it's almost like Roccat find themselves a late game team fight. This is exactly the style that Roccat like to play, and Steeelback coming up huge with that ultimate. He held on to that last shot for such a long time. I was so worried that he wasn't even going to use it, but he saves it. He knows that Gilius is slowly getting chunked down. He understands the damage that Jhin has, and I'm not going to spoil the surprise. Just keep your eye on Steeelback in there. Shot number 1 hits RALEZ. Shot number 2 hits Steve. Meanwhile, Parang, he's just trying to be a bit of a threat into the backline. And Gilius taking so much damage from the Baron. 806 crit is enough to take away the smite. And then just Steeelback on the backline, doing so much damage, completely untouched, with Raze just soaking up so much of the damage.
Both of the AD carries so crucial in these games. The damage output is ridiculous. And considering Steeelback is on a way less mobile carry than RALEZ, it is incredibly impressive what he's able to get done, and the team has enabled him to do. 100% kill participation, 7 kills that Roccat have to the 13 of Schalke, but Roccat, they get themselves a serious amount of breathing room by stopping the Baron, by clearing Gilius away, and winning a big fight.
This is the thing about Rockat's composition and Rockat's playstyle overall. They are very good at playing around objectives, and that is not necessarily the place that Schalke want to be. They have this poke disengage composition where you use the Trundle to draw pressure in a side lane and set up the flank. If you cannot set that up for yourself, and if you're not confident enough to commit to an objective like that, you have to be prepared for the response from Roccat, and so far the response has been pretty damn good.
Yeah, no kidding there. Still, a lot of individual power plays, and Schalke still rocking this 5,000 gold advantage, but it means less and less. The more the game goes on, Roccat with the late game team fights, finding themselves in a comfort moment. They settle into it, but still very dangerous. This Schalke squad, they've won as many fights as they've lost in this series so far, and they're still 1 up on the board. Roccat trying to even that score.
So now it's a battle of the 80 carries. Which will be able to carry harder, RALEZ or Steeelback? We heard kind words from Steeelback with regards to RALEZ just before we went to break, and he does have a lot of respect towards RALEZ and says how he is a talented AD carry. Well, now Steeelback, you get to prove whether or not you can be more talented and carry your team to a 1-1.
Well, he certainly had much bigger presence over the time he's been in the LCS, but you look at the career of a player like Steeelback, starting out, his debut being on Fnatic and all the pressure there, but how he transformed as a player, eventually going to NA, coming back here, and really showing up big on the Unicorns last split. Now kind of looking like maybe not the best or the top AD carry in the league by any means, but still capable of making these massive flashy plays as Parang takes away the blue buff from Steve as they were dueling over that one. RALEZ, on the other hand, he's always been noted as the stable AD carry. The AD carry that will never lose you the game, but rarely would he win it for you. This time around, he's starting to look like a real monster.
Certainly is. 8-0-3 on that Azir round. 323 farm at 33 minutes. But Airwaks, he's getting bullied out of his jungle. Double binding.
They've got just enough damage. Gilius bops in, and almost in slow motion, they got the damage they needed to find the kill. Turning now into the Baron Pit as
round
5.
2.
Here we go again. No smite available for Airwaks. Can Roccat make the miracle defense again? Parang is not here.
He doesn't have his teleport available either, but Schalke, they're being forced off this Baron once again. They can't quite decide if they want to commit to it.
Oh, a moment of indecision. That can be all that turns the game. The last shot will not go where they want it to be. In comes Parang. It's going to get taken. It's RALEZ that secures this up. Schalke now trying to force the rest of the fight. RALEZ over the wall. Ray's no longer unbreakable. Low health bars, but he stays alive.
So Roccat this time, they're not really in a good position to force the fight. Parang takes a little bit too long to get to the fight because he cancelled his teleport. He couldn't go for the play. Ultimate. Not gonna get the snipe down. But still, Roccat gave away the Baron because Airwaks gets caught out of position once more. I feel like this is a phrase that I have a tendency of repeating. 1-6-2 right now is really a big part as to why Schalke are able to get these leads. And it's what's giving Schalke such a big advantage in this game.
Talk about big advantages too. Now they can start on this Elder Dragon. Airwaks is finally up. Roccat have the option to collapse, but this Dragon's falling fast, and with the Baron buff, they do not feel like they want to dive into this one. Parang throws the Time Winder, instantly stunned. Dragon's taken away, secured again by RALEZ. The fight is now on. Steve is caught and locked in the middle of it all, but Airwaks, he's only got the Lambster spotted himself, but it's a fight on two fronts. RALEZ secures the kill on that side, while Parang is isolated, but he turns back around. A double kill for RALEZ, looking for more. They land all the damage, and it's only Steeelback left. That's not going to be for long. Gilius with the barrel, the arrow to finish the job. It is a 5-4-0. Big goal for Schalke 04.
And Schalke, with that Baron buff, with the Dragon buff, are easily going to be able to break into the base of Roccat, and with the very long death timers, they may very well be able to close out the game.
Looking for all the damage, looking for an end and a 2-0 on the game. They so badly want this. It's going to be the inhibitor. No one up for 10 more seconds. It's only going to be Razor Airwaks. They've got enough time to finish this one off. And what a hard-fought victory it was. Schalke coming up huge. Roccat, kudos for playing a brilliant game. But the end score is going to be 2-0 to Schalke 04.
Schalke, they get themselves a 2-0. A desperately needed 2-0 as well, given they were sitting at 7th place. Now going to be getting those 3 points, moving up in the standings at this point in the split against a team that we have considered a very solid middle-of-the-pack team is only a positive thing for Schalke.
The hype building up from week number 1, the acquisition of this team by the Bundesliga club, and it kind of fizzled